What's up, you guys? What's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Rap Nerds presented by the Music Support Group. This is Curt, aka Leroy Green III, all the way out here in LA. I got my man Darren back in Atlanta, trying to stay COVID
What's
free.
good?
What's up, dog?
Trying to, man. What's going on? 40 ounce guru. Yeah, man. It's even though Atlanta doesn't, they act like it doesn't exist out here. Like, I mean, with all seriousness, like it makes me feel like I'm crazy.
Right, right.
But I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right, man. I'm excited about today's episode.
Yeah, man, we
I
got a
think it's gonna be
special guest
pretty
on the
dope.
pod. My man Kevin, my brother Kevin, Kevin Golden.
What's up? What's up?
How you doing, brother? How you doing? How you holding up?
What's going on, man? I'm
Congratu-
wonderful. Doing
Congratulations on
well.
number three, baby number three on
Yeah,
the way.
yeah. Thank you.
Also,
Thank you.
congratulations on the new album, your brother's new album. I know you help
Yes.
executive produce that as well, and play. I'm sure you played on it as well. We'll get into that
Yeah,
later, but
played, produced, EP, all that. So
yeah, man. So
that's
congratulations on that.
thank you. Thank you.
I, so I can't wait. We're gonna get into more of that album, but I think before we get into any of the fun stuff, we're gonna shout out people out real quick. Let everyone know what they got going on. So we got music support group member Kirsten Williams. She out here in Atlanta. She is a professional. I think it's like her first professional performance. I think
Yeah,
she's doing a background singing for. I think I'm not sure which band it is, but on Wednesday at City Winery out there in Ponce City Market
it's a
is
pretty
a
dope.
live
That's a
music
pretty dope
wine and
venue
rhyme.
too.
Yeah, so it's real. It's gonna be really cool. I'm gonna try to go check it out. That's should look out for that if you're in the Atlanta area. Definitely go check that out Wednesday. And then shout out to Darth Guap. My man just released a new single.
Dart guap, dart guap,
Pretty
dart
dope.
guap.
And he has his like first performance like tonight out in Muscle Beach, Alabama. So shout out to Darth Guap. I know he gonna hold it down.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Martavis as well. Dropped his new
Yes,
EP, Concrete Bloom. It's fire. So go check it
Yeah,
that
out.
that
joint,
joint's
So
nice.
that
it's
joint
it's
smooth.
fire. It's fire.
I cook
That
some
joint's
dinner to it.
nice.
Like some music is dope when you
Yeah.
cooking dinner and
Yeah, you can get into it. You
while
can
you
just cut it on the background, man. Enjoy a nice glass of wine, cook dinner
it's
with your
a
lady.
Yeah.
real smooth build thing, man. That joint's dope. But all right, so we did that. Let's get into the fun stuff. So I think we really want to talk about today was recording, right? Not just recording, but like independent or sound a label. And just I think as fans, we don't know much about it since we don't work
Yeah.
within the industry. So we only have our vantage point. And so there's a lot of it that we don't understand. So you'll have a lot of people talking about it, independent, he should be signed, but they don't really know the extension of what those words
Right.
actually mean. So we want to bring on Kevin, who actually, works in that space. And he's also had some experience doing it on to kind of help us facilitate this conversation a little bit and learn some things.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. No doubt.
So
Um.
before we even start,
Go
and
ahead.
just go ahead and give us some background on you, Kev.
Yeah. So again, I'm Kevin Golden. I am a I am an entertainment lawyer by trade. So yeah, I do music, I produce, I play and all that, but my day job, if you will, is entertainment lawyer. And so a lot of those things that you're talking about, dealing with contracts, negotiating deals, artists, songwriters, producers, publishers, that's kind of like my day-to-day space. So whenever I get an opportunity to talk about that stuff, it's an honor and a privilege because I'm aware that most artists are about the art,
Hmm.
right? They don't know, or a lot of people aren't kind of privy to the stuff that goes on behind it.
Yeah, the
And
business
so
side of it.
yeah, the business side of it. But if your business not together, then the art's gonna suffer. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So I love to educate, even on like my Instagram or even if you're not a client, like I love to kind of give, drop nuggets in what I know, so people can be more kind of cognizant of what's going on.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, let's get into it, man. I guess first question I got from you is like what's the true definition of like an independent artist? And what's the difference between being an independent artist and being signed under a label?
Yeah. So like indie, kind of like technically you're indie artist if you're not signed to one of the major labels.
Mm,
And so that's kind of like historically, that's kind of like what an independent artist was, right?
mm,
But then now you have like indie labels that are blowing up like E1 or some, kind of taking over indie labels that have become darn near as big as kind of like the major labels, like Sony, Warner. Warner, Universal, like the big boys.
So being an independent artist isn't really solely you operating on your own self now. I guess I've always been under the impression that it was only you in operating under your own self. But you're telling me that like you can be an independent artist and work for a quote unquote independent label.
Well, it's kind of like different. There's so many ways to kind of structure a deal now. So that you can still, my personal definition is like you're an indie artist if you own your own content.
Okay.
Like, and now that's Kevin's definition. That's not like the textbook definition.
Okay.
But because things have become so convoluted now, because, you know, indie kind of labels kind of blown up, and then you have distribution from major labels, whatever. I look at an indie artist as somebody who owns their content. If you own your music, you know, if you own your masters, you know, in my opinion, you're kind of like an indie artist.
So that's like the big thing now is like owning your masters. You see like Kanye like talking about, you know, owning his masters or whatever and giving his, you know, good music artists like what, 50% of their masters. So like how do you go about owning your music? Like,
and why does it seem like it's so like why wouldn't every artist try to go that route? Like what makes it so difficult to start off owning your music? And like you said, what does it actually like mean?
Yeah, like, well, if you own your stuff unless and until you give it away at the bottom line. So any artist that creates a song, a producer that creates a beat, a songwriter that writes a song, or artist that records a song, like it's yours unless you give it away. And so a lot of what you see though is people who have label, you know, recording agreements or record deals. They don't pay to have their stuff recorded. And so they're giving the ownership, they're signing the ownership of their stuff away in exchange for advances or actually the money, the studio time, whatever, to actually get the music out.
Got it.
And so that's how, you know, like, so if Darren, you at the crib and you record a song, like that's yours, you own it, you know. But if you come to me like, hey, Kev, I know you got a label. I ain't got no money, but I'm a dope artist. I need to get some music recorded. So me, the label, gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna front you the money to do all this. I'm gonna give you a little bit of money to put in your pocket while you're recording, so you can focus on recording. That's that advance. And but in exchange, I'm going to own the masters. I'm going to own the product because I paid for it.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna give you a royalty. I'm gonna give you a share of all the money that your stuff makes, but it's my stuff because I paid for it.
So I guess that kind of, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I guess that kind of leads to my next question of like, since they're owning this music, quote unquote, or technically, does that kind of like hold them back on when they are able to drop music? Is that why we see artists like go like maybe years without dropping a single or whatever? Like, is that why we hear that? Is that
it can be? Yeah, it can be any number of reasons. So for one, you have, you know, all the labels that you see, they fall up under Sony, Universal, or Warner. Like they all come up under there. And so these are huge entities you're talking about. And so sometimes people don't put music out because, Curtis, you might be you know, you might be R&D or yeah, you might kind of A&R, excuse me, R&D. You might be A&R, the label for artists and repertoire, and you may go sign Darren. You love him, you think he's hot. You put out his first record, but then Curt, you go and start your own publishing label. You start your own label, but Darren is signed to the label you used to work at.
Okay, so I can't
Curt,
bring him with me. Yeah,
you can't bring him with you because he's under contract to the label that you used to work at. But you were his champion there. You were his advocate there. You're no longer there. And so everybody else at that label, they're trying to make sure the people that they brought in are successful. So it's not like they may not be hating on Darren. They just like, they focus on other people. And then, so you may have that situation. You may have a situation where that first record didn't recoup and the label is just trying to like milk that album a little bit longer before they invest in you for a second album, because if they do a second album with you, they got to pay you another advance. And so they like, I don't know if I want to drop you yet because I think you might be hot, but I ain't ready to drop another advance on you because your last record didn't do what I needed it to do. So we just gonna sit you here, keep touring, keep doing your little thing until we get some more of this money back. Then we'll invest in your next album. And so, yeah. So I mean, and then there could be any number of reasons in between. You know, a female artist, she may have had a baby. You know what I mean? Or
interesting.
It could be anything. You know what I mean?
Do you, like when situations are like you mentioned when you're holding on to music, or when they feel like they're holding on to music. So for artists like albums just is doing incredibly well. Like for example, like how Bruno Mars was touring off of like 24K one album for like I think he's still touring off that joint. I don't even remember if he's made an album since. But so like, is that because could that be a case like if the artist was unhappy, they want to release more music, but their label's like saying no, we're gonna continue to hold off, or like when the kind of determines like when they actually want to release it?
Yeah, it could be. And so that's another thing as it relates to your contract. So one thing that I like to put in contracts is kind of like a guaranteed release clause. And so basically that's saying like, y'all gotta release my stuff, you know, in certain amount of time period or whatever. And if not, then that's a breach of contract and I'm out. And so it's just being kind of mindful.
Is that with like albums and singles, or is that just strictly with albums? Like if I record an album, y'all have to release my album within 3 months.
It's based off what your contract is, you know what I mean? What the requirement is. And so that's, you know, I kind of go back to like, what does the contract say a lot? But they're kind of like baselines, but there's kind of like the possibilities are endless in terms of kind of what you can negotiate. It's just kind of how forward thinking are you? And, you know, shameless plug, but is your lawyer kind of looking out for the worst case scenarios as well as the best case scenarios? You know what I mean?
I get that. So I mean, so if I was a young artist and I wanted to blow up, like I want to be like Travis Scott. You know what I'm saying? Like Travis Scott just got his own Happy Meal. Like I want to be that hot. Do I go like independent? Do I just own my own music, or am I like, hey, I probably need a team, you know, behind me?
Well, regardless of,
I mean, obviously you're going to need a team. Yeah, you're going to need a team. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But so kind of back up a little bit, I'm come back in. Like one of the advantages that labels have is because they are so big, because their networks are so big, they have all these writers, they have all these producers, they have all these artists, and they have connections at the radio stations or the, you know, the playlist curators, whatever. They have like limitless pockets, right?
Yeah.
Or bottomless pockets. So they can spend a crazy amount of money to kind of like promote you. You see what I'm saying? But then on the flip side, you see some indie artists kind of blow up on a TikTok challenge. And then it's just like,
yeah,
where'd they come from? You know what I mean?
Like Lil Nas X. Like Lil Nas X.
And
but eventually he went and signed with a label, though, I believe. I think he went and eventually signed with RCA, I believe. Or you know, those major labels.
Yeah, so because like their connections are so huge, you know what I mean? So that if you just want to be a star, you know, there is something that the label can offer you, but it's gonna come with a price. You know, and then you have people on the flip side like Ryan Leslie. You remember him?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so Ryan Leslie, he was a label artist at first, then he went and did this indie thing. When he went independent, no one really heard from him anymore. But he said he made so much more money, you know, as an indie artist
than he did
when he was on a label. Because I might go from, you know, 5 million listeners or 5 million albums sold to 200,000 albums sold. But every dollar of that 200,000 is going in my pocket.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Whereas with that 5 million, I'm not seeing none of that money until the advance is recouped, till the recording costs are recouped, to the marketing costs are recouped.
So
I'm not seeing none of that money to the label makes all of the money back. That's what recoupment is. Like the label has to make back all of the money that they spent on an artist before that artist starts getting those royalty checks. So like back, earlier this year, you had Meg Thee Stallion. She was unhappy. You know what I mean? She was a star, right? Yeah. But she was complaining she wasn't getting enough money from her stardom, right? And in her words, that was her complaint.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of difference. So it's just like, do you want to be the famous Pusha T line? Like, do you want to be famous or are you trying to be rich? You know what I mean? He's like, I'm trying to be rich. These cats out here trying to be famous. You know what I mean? So he's like, I'm trying to be rich.
So I mean, from my vantage point, it seems like you're from like a management standpoint. You're saying kind of do your own thing as far as you can, right? And then,
in my opinion, yeah.
And then if that opportunity presents itself, then kind of like go towards a label. Is that like a fair assessment?
Yeah, if you sign with a label, you want to be popping already, so that you have a little bit of bargaining power.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So your conversation with the label is different when you got 5 different labels knocking on your door trying to sign you than it is if you're sending your demo to everybody. You see what I'm saying? You and folks DMs like, yo, I'm an artist, I'm dope, check me out. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's trying to find that sweet spot between having enough, negotiating power based off of what you already bring in, but also trying to figure out how to get to that point. Period. Like, that seems like to be like the difficult part of it. Trying to like start from scratch and get to the point where you have negotiating power versus leveraging the label's money and reach to get you to where you want to be. So I guess
exactly. You know what I mean? And that's why there's no uniform answer. You got folks like Chance the Rapper, like, I ain't signing to no label.
Yeah.
Right.
He has distribution, which is kind of that's what we had with Geoffrey.
Okay.
So we're indie, we own the record. I know we're going to talk about the record a little bit more in a minute, but that's kind of like a happy medium. So it's just like I produced the own content, but we have the big machine of the label is help pushing the music out.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But we still own it. Now they're getting a percentage as opposed to them owning it and I'm getting a percentage.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about that. I know we wanted to, I think it's a good time to like start talking about more like the album as well, but also want to kind of get your standpoint, your viewpoint from the management side and how like you guys decided to structure your deals, how you structured it, and like what gave you the initiative to do that.
Yeah, so this is Geoffrey Golden, my brother. He's a gospel artist, recording artist. He won a show on BET called Sunday Best. So it's like the gospel American Idol, The Voice or whatever. And so he won that, I forget what year it was, maybe 14, I'm not sure, 14, somewhere in there. Anyway, but he won that show. But as a condition to even being a contestant on the show, before one episode airs, every contestant signs a recording agreement. Now, only the winner, they're going to toss out everybody else's except the winner. But before you even get on there, you sign that agreement. So, because what happens is you're on the show, then people start to know your name. They don't want it to be like, oh, I'm popping now. I've been on the show.
Yeah, I can just jump off.
I don't want to sign with you no more, right? So, he had a record deal. He was signed to Foyo Soul RCA Records, which is Kirk Franklin's label, which is a joint venture under Sony. It's under the Sony arm. And so Geoffrey was on Kirk Franklin's label. He released a project in 2015. It was phenomenal. But we didn't really have much to do with that. Geoffrey wrote 2 songs on it. I didn't play. I didn't produce. I didn't do anything. You know what I mean?
So
brother Reggie.
How is that? Like, I know you guys, like, I know you guys as a family, like, you guys are a very music family. Like, even from, like, I'm sure your mom and, like, your grandparents and stuff like that. Like, how is that kind of, trying to take a step back?
Having to watch on the sidelines?
Yeah, having to watch on the sidelines, basically. Like, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. It was tough then, even more so for me, I think, than Reggie, because I'm kind of more of we all produce our stuff together. If there's a lead producer, that would be me. You know, like I do more of the technical stuff, the engineering, kind of like bringing everything together. And I'm also a musician and music director. So like being in those rehearsals, and the record turned out great, but early in the rehearsals,
it was
I'm
an
like, man, they
amazing
playing my
gospel
song
album.
wrong, and the song, you know what I mean? I'm like, man, I should be there, you know. And so, you know, it was tough, man. But after that week of recording, like we learned so much from all these Grammy winning, you know, singers and writers and producers and musicians. So it's just like, yo, I learned a lot that we can take with us. And so that went there, and the label was not very big. You know, you had like 4 people there. One of the people who was kind of one of the drivers, kind of keeping up with all the artists and everything, she left and took a higher job at another label.
Okay.
And so, you know, how we decided to kind of go our own way. For the second album, his album had been out 2 years, and we were like, okay, it's about time for us to record again. But we're just kind of looking at the roster, the label roster, and looking like where we were in line, because you're like, wait, her album came out before ours, and she doesn't have a second album yet. Man. Their album came out before ours. They don't have a second album yet.
The way you describe like the music rosters or whatever, it sounds like a basketball roster and people just trying to vibe for like minutes, right?
you try to get your spot in the rotation.
Exactly. Like, coach, look at me, dog. I've been making all the threes in practice. Remember me? Last year I won MVP. Remember me?
Dude,
it's time.
That's perfect. Yeah, dude, that's a perfect example, because it's like, the label isn't but so big. The basketball, you can only have 5 guys on the floor, and NBA, you only got 48 minutes. So you got a limited number of minutes. Yeah. That's less than 250 minutes to go around, you know. And so how you divide that up? So we're looking at like this artist record did better than ours. This artist did about the same as ours, but both of their records came out before ours. And they don't have a sophomore album yet. So I was just like, dang, we ready to put some more music out now, and I know it's going to be a minute. And one of the people at the label left to take a job at another label. So I'm like, they got less people to get it done. I'm like, nah, man, it ain't going to work. So a lot of people ask like, oh, was there some like issues or bad blood like between Jeff or our camp and Kirk Franklin's label? And that, absolutely not. Like, they were amazing mentors and everything to us, but we're just looking at it just like, it's just no way we're going to be able to keep moving, because it's too many other people ahead of us in line. So
how was that process? Did y'all just waited it out to your contract? Like, how long was your contract with For Your Soul Records? Like,
so it was an album, then they had like an option for another one.
Okay.
And so so you can't just really like wait it out.
You got a player option, team option, like
yeah. So it's like a team option. It's like a team option. All right. Yeah, it's like a team option.
Interesting.
Where the player has no say.
Okay.
Right. And so we were kind of sitting there like, okay, we want to get another record out, like was good, and we knew it wasn't going. It was going to be a while. Mind you, also in that time, around the same time as Geoffrey's album, me and Reggie produced another full live album for Howard Gospel Choir, which did really well.
Yeah.
And that was completely independent, no distribution, no nothing. And that did really well. And so
you're able to do that because that was just you. So because you weren't tied to the label, so that's why you were able to.
Yeah,
got you.
We weren't tied, you know.
But Geoffrey was on that album too, wasn't he? Or did you have to get permission from the label to get Geoffrey? Okay,
got it. Yep, we had to get permission from the label for this song, for Geoffrey to be featured on the song that he was on. And he was a co-writer on that song too. But we still had to get the label's permission for him to be featured on it. And so we had that experience of producing our own stuff, so we knew we could.
Yeah.
And so it really just like Geoffrey gave a phone call to the label president, and it was just like, It's been a couple years. We ready to record again. I know we got these other people in line. Kind of, how are you feeling? And they're just like, yeah, it's gonna be a minute. So Jeff was just like, can you let us out? Just kind of straight up. And they were like, sure.
Interesting.
And we was like, thanks.
But I'm sure you guys were like blessed in that situation. I'm sure a lot of artists aren't though, right? Like that doesn't happen everywhere. Like I'm sure a lot of artists are just sitting on music rosters and they're like, please just let me out so I can go drop some music and do what I love.
So I can do it.
And they're like, no.
If you can go back in time, would you do you guys regret starting off through the label experience, or do you appreciate that experience because it kind of
absolutely not? Yeah, no, definitely don't regret it one bit. Because it was a great experience for all of us. Geoffrey being kind of in the label machine, so us, because we're not just producing stuff. Like we started an indie label ourselves, and so we wanted to be able to see how things were ran, what we want to keep, what we want to change. And then just kind of seeing how you got the label, then you got the label above them, then you got Sony, which is kind of like the overarching over everything.
Everybody getting paid except for you, sounds like everybody's getting paid off of you, like, right?
Yeah, it just keeps keeps like trickling down.
It's a pyramid scheme.
Like this so everybody
a million subsidiaries. So what's when you mentioned like you guys have your own independent label, so what's the difference between like being an independent artist and then being an independent label and then like a major label, and this experience from your level?
Yeah, so like I would say, just being the indie artist can be on the label. So the label kind of functions like an indie label kind of functions is kind of the pseudo label, and there is no standard. Let me first say that. So it may look different from the Golden Brothers. It may look different, somebody else's. But I would say the role of an indie label is you support the artist, how a label will support an artist. And then you can also have multiple artists on your roster. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes they're not labels. Sometimes people just call them kind of like production companies, whatever you want to call it. However you structure it, it's just that Geoffrey is the first artist with the LP, with the full album. He's not the first artist that we put something out for. It's another young lady. We put out a single for her called Bullet Train. Her name is Rolanda Carter. And so we've done stuff for other artists that we've put out, but this is the first kind of featured full album. And we have distribution for this one. So like I said, let's
talk about the Golden Brothers. The Golden Brothers Music Group is the name of the label, right? So obviously we've been talking about Geoffrey Golden. That's your main artist. Are you you have any other artists in the world? I know your brother Reggie sings, but like, do you have any other artists in the works trying to get in on the label? And are you strictly a gospel label?
So yes to the first question, no to the second. So it's, as far as other artists, like I said, we put out some music for Rolanda Carter already. She's working on some other stuff with some other people, but that's EP. And then, hopefully for her full album, we'll bring her back on because she's dope and we love her. And she's the homie as well. And there are other people who are kind of in conversation, who are in talks with right now, to get their stuff out. But it's, when you're kind of working a real small kind of machine, how we are, like we got to be really, really strategic
about who you bring on. Yeah.
About who we bring on, because we want to be sustainable, meaning like we have to at least be not losing money, even if we're not making money. So we got to be sustainable, but we want to be fair and we want to be good to the artists because we understand like the big label, in my opinion, you should avoid that unless they're going to be giving you such a huge advance that you don't care if you don't own your stuff.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like that balancing that, like, we got to be good to them, but we got to be good to us. And so we're just kind of like working those details out. obviously Geoffrey's a gospel artist,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not necessarily exclusively a gospel label.
Okay.
Now we're not going to have anything that any artist, in our opinion, that kind of contradicts or goes against the gospel message, in our opinion.
Okay.
But there's a
Gotcha.
ton, yeah, there are a ton of dope artists out there who are doing love music, or who are just kind of like vibing, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so their stuff isn't bad. Their stuff isn't contradictory to the gospel message, but they're not gospel artists
Okay.
either.
Okay.
So yeah, we're definitely open to that.
I get
Do
that.
you if you were like when you have artists across different labels, does that affect how you structure their deals based on like who's consuming their content? Or is there a pretty, I know you said there's no standard earlier, but is there like a baseline of how you're setting up these deals and how an artist interacts with the independent label regardless of their genre?
Yeah, so there are a couple. You kind of like with me with my lawyer hat on now, or are you talking about as the label kind of
I think both. I think
exec?
is both not just how the contract is laid out, but also how the label supports that artist.
Oh, got you. Yeah, so there are. Yeah, that's a good question, and yes, there are going to be differences because, um, for example, just the sheer number of consumers of a gospel record is so low in comparison to the number of consumers of like a pop record
Mm-hmm.
or a rap album. You see what I'm saying? And
Gotcha.
so you may see rap albums where folks are getting like $1 million advances and recording budgets of 1 million. You see what I'm saying? Like
Gotcha.
real big money being spent on some of these artists because the market can kind of support that.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? But as like the gospel artists,
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing really well if like your recording budget is like 150K. And so,
Gotcha.
I mean, and that's a lot of bread, but on a Timbaland might charge, Pharrell might charge that for one track. You know what I mean? So just when you looking at with the dollars, like you gotta know the marketplace. You know what I
This is
mean?
really putting into perspective when cats be like $100,000 a verse. That's really putting that in perspective. That's
Like,
putting that into real perspective.
My
right
verse
now.
budget is like more than your entire like album budget.
This is just telling me how expensive supporting a rap artist is.
Yeah. But on the flip side, that also goes to, that also gives perspective as to the type of hole that they're in if they don't own their stuff. You see what I'm saying? And you also got to keep in mind, like, it's big money being spent, but the lifestyle is big money too. You see what I'm saying?
And so you're like losing money on both ends or spending money on both ends. Like you really can be in a whole deep hole.
You could be in the deep hole, and that's why like you're so desperate for your label to kind of pick you up for the second album. And then if your perspective is, if you're a rapper and you sign to a big label, they gave you $1 million for your first album, to record your first album. And then you like, dang, I'm broke, I ain't got no money, like I spent it all. Ain't nobody tell me about Uncle Sam and taxes took all my money. You hear Offset talking about that all the time. Like, don't nobody tell you about that. So it's just like, dang, I need another advance. I need to put some more stuff out. But it's just like, their mindset, I can't necessarily do it as independent because it's going to cost me $1 million cash to make this record.
Yeah.
Whereas us, I'm like, shoot.
2 Chainz had that.
I know we can get this record done for $40K if I'm doing the work. You see what I'm saying?
And that's where you talk about like being that much more like profitable for doing like what you guys are doing.
Because the bar is so low to recoup.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So
I guess, so let's talk about See Revival, Jeff's album, and how this came together. And like you said, I know this has been like a long time coming. So let's get into the album. How did all this come together? How did breaking away from that from the label, and then creating this independent label, and then putting the first album out. So let's talk about
And
that.
then like the inspiration for like the content and the structure of it.
Yeah. So Jeff, like it was fall of 16. Like I said, we knew we were kind of getting antsy. We wanted to put out some new music. Between spring of 15 when Jeff's album came out and fall of 16, Jeff was super busy, out every weekend. So if you got 10 songs and you recycling 10 songs,
yeah, it gets tired. It gets tiring
every weekend.
Yeah, it gets tiring.
You know what I'm saying? Right. It gets tiring. And unless it's a situation where, and then you also got to keep in mind, Live Nation isn't bringing Geoffrey to Atlanta. Such and such a church is bringing Geoffrey to Atlanta.
Oh.
And so the amount of dollars, the budget, for the trip, you can't necessarily bring your whole band, your whole team to every trip because that church can't support it. And so a lot of times it's Geoffrey and the music director, which is like generally me. And so we can't remix and rearrange all the music too often because it's some local church band dudes in Little Rock, Arkansas, who got to play the record with us. And so we can't throw them too many curveballs. So that just goes to, show like how boring it can get, to be doing 10 songs for 2 years every weekend.
Over and over.
So we were kind of antsy to get some more music out. Jeff had been writing a lot. And we were kind of just ready to take that step. We had some records that we produced under our belt. We were ready to go. And so, we like I said, we broke away from the label, parted ways on very good terms. And then we just like, okay. And I think it was like my idea. It's just like, we don't need nobody else. Let's do it. You know what I mean? Let's start it ourselves. We planned it out the budget. Then once we got into it, we was like, dang, man, this is a lot.
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean? But we kind of just had the idea like, why not us, man? All these people are putting out stuff. We got the experience. We got the skill set. We got the knowledge. We got the content. We got the music. Let's do it. And so we started making plans to do a live record. And Jeff, so we recorded live in the summer of 2017. We picked a lot of the songs. Geoffrey wrote a lot, and we didn't have like an open submissions kind of thing that some artists do, where they just kind of say, hey, send me what you got. But there are certain people, certain songwriters that we reached out to specifically and intentionally because we like their stuff. And so we reached out to some of them and asked them to submit songs, and we chose some of them. So Jeff wrote like half the album.
It's a very good
or at
album.
least wrote on. Yeah,
I listened to it this morning. It's a very good album. Like his first album was amazing, and this is a dope follow up. But
yeah,
go ahead.
And it's completely different from the first.
Yeah,
one.
it is, and it sounds different.
Yeah,
I think
that's our sound.
Yeah, I think from like just a basic
that crew sound.
Yeah, just a basic like fan perspective. You can see like. Yeah, you can see the
you're allowed to put more yourself into it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, we recorded it. We picked the songs, and we actually recorded like 14 songs. So we didn't put them all on there. We're going to do a follow-up, kind of like a deluxe version when all the churches and everything open back up so they can still have something fresh when he started kind of getting back on the road again.
I was about to say, it wasn't a lot of like churchy like choir music on the album, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we got a couple.
Okay.
We got a couple in the pocket. You know what I mean? But
don't sleep now. Don't sleep.
Yeah, we got a couple in the pocket.
We're going to get it started now.
Yeah, so like first quarter next year, we're going to do like a deluxe version. So not like a whole new album, but kind of like a some bonus cuts for this one. But yeah, so we recorded it, and then then the long process of, kind of post-production and mixing and getting other musicians and other kind of, people to kind of contribute different kind of elements to bring it not just kind of like the 5-piece church band,
Mhm.
but like the record, like the full album that you hear with all
Yeah.
those other little elements in there.
So hold on, time out.
So
I must have missed this. So you've been working on this since 2017.
That's what I was gonna ask. Like, how long has the process
yeah,
been?
So you've
But
been,
that,
oh, so this has
like
been a
the length of the
3-year
process for the
process.
second portion of it.
yeah. So it was kind of like a 3-year process. Part of it was kind of getting the stuff done.
Mhm.
Part of it was, you know, pausing because we ran out of money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, and trying to stack that capital back up, so we can do it the right way.
Okay.
I mean, because we could have done it. I could have mixed it at the house, and we could have got a dope graphic designer, and it would have been a decent record.
Yeah.
But
You want
it's
it to
just
sound like a
nah.
real studio like album, not something I made in my put together in my basement.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And so we was just like, no, we gonna save the money and do it the right way. Because Geoffrey had his first album was on this standard, and then the Howard record that we produced was on this standard. So it's like, man, we can't go down.
Yeah.
You gotta
You know what I
exceed it.
mean? So we gonna wait until we can do it the right way. So part of it was money, part of it was just kind of like human resources, like different people we were using had different stuff going on, and then part of it was just like, all right, I'm just gonna take a break from this, like for like 6-9 months. Like I just didn't even look at it. You know what I mean? And then kind of pick it back up. And so we actually finished the album. It's been done for months. It's been done for months. So we didn't like just finish it last week.
Yeah.
But I think we probably finished the record in like the spring, maybe March.
Did you
April,
like decide
May.
like did like the pandemic kind of help you kind of influence how you decide when to release it, or has it influenced what you guys are doing at all?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we got a distribution label. So remember I said it all comes up under Sony. And so this distribution is called Red Alliance Media, which they're part of Fair Trade, which is they would do a lot of like the contemporary Christian music, so like the white artists. So so some of those kind of big kind of white Christian artists. So and they're up under Sony. So what the distribution does, they kind of get the promotion, they get the marketing, the radio. They kind of handle all that, and they also kind of advise and counsel as to kind of when should we release, maybe different promotions we want to do, and they also know like everybody else who has any album or any single or anything coming out at any point.
So they're like this time period, you'll probably get the most bang for your buck right here on this weekend. Okay.
So it's just like, well, Tasha Cobb's got an album coming out this week.
Yeah, Marvin Sapp dropped his 2 weeks ago.
Marvin Sapp dropped last week.
Yeah, you don't want to go against the heavyweights. Okay. All right.
You know what I'm saying?
About timing.
Exactly. So it's just like, you ain't got to be number one, but you want to be, top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
And so, you got the timing, and then you got the lead up, the promotion. They have, they knew, okay, we want to promote this things. We want to release 2 songs for the pre-order, and we want to wait 2 weeks and then release a 3rd song for the pre-orders, and then wait another 2 weeks for the whole album to drop. So that's all their department.
Okay.
But being in on that, working directly with the distribution label on this process, it gave us more experience and insight than we had when he was on Curt's label. So now for the next artist we work with, we are that much more knowledgeable. You see what I'm saying? As to how that process should go.
Interesting. This has been informative for me. I didn't know this. It went like all this went to it. I know it was a complicated business, but I didn't know like all this.
Because like how could you, like how could we know, like it's I'm glad that you were able to.
And I can see why people would get burnt out on the music labels and everything. I thought
and let me
go ahead.
Or I'm gonna say, and let me kind of say, comparatively speaking, this was a simple, you had 3 producers on the whole album. That's it. You have 3 executive producers. That's it. You may have Geoffrey, then you may have had like 6 other writers on the album. That's it. Put my lawyer hat on for a minute. I have clients who's like one of 12 writers on a single song.
Interesting.
I see. That's
You see
crazy.
what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it may be like
I
4 or
don't
5
know if it
producers
works.
on a song,
Yeah.
12 writers on a song. And so um, any big kind of hit you see, yeah, it's going to be a ton of people involved. And so you got all these lawyers, you have all these different publishing labels, you have all these different entities just to get a single song out. So let alone
Album.
full body of work. You
That's
see
what
what I'm
the
saying?
credits
So
be like a paragraph per song. Like
whole page
credit
per
the
song, yeah.
like what?
Because it's
What is
so
this?
many people. Yeah,
I'm like
so
the
many
song was 3
people.
minutes and 50 seconds. Like how did all y'all contribute to
How you
this?
got 15 writers?
How is it
3 minute
possible?
song.
There's three lines, 3 verses.
This person got 2%. This person got 4% of the song. You know what I mean? The main artist may have like 25, 35% of the song. So, that process can definitely get, cumbersome to say the least.
I thought that was interesting that you said you guys like took your time on the album and like sat on it. Even when you said like you put it to the side for like half a year almost. Like I think a lot of times like artists so a lot of times when artists put out bad albums or they come out and they say like, oh, I didn't like that album that I put out. Is it because like the label's pushing them to put this album out by a specific date, by this target date? Is that why artists drop albums that they don't like?
It could be, or some artists, want to strictly stick to kind of like that 2 year, that every other year
To
timeline.
keep relevant. Okay.
Yeah, to kind of stay relevant. And I get it, I get it. But I think once we had it for maybe like a year and a half, I was just like, well, we already lost the momentum. So
yeah,
we
why?
get momentum.
What's the
Yeah,
point?
we just gonna like do it the right way, take our time with it, and make sure that when we do put it out, it's everything we want it to be, and it is.
Why do you think that labels are resistant to do that? Which is give, like, I know they have like specific amount of budgets for songs and artists, but if you want to recoup your money, why wouldn't it be advantageous to them to give you everything you need, right down to the producers you want? If you want to bring in more people to work on this specific sound, then do that, but just making you feel as comfortable as possible versus giving you all of these restrictions and barriers.
No, a lot of times they do, and that's why they be in so deep of a hole.
Got you.
Like, man, I want Timbaland on the track. I want
see.
Pharrell on the track.
They're like, you sure?
I want Metro on the track. You know what I mean? I want Swiss on the track. It's like, all right.
Are you sure now? Yeah, I want all
the
that.
album be boo boo.
but then this is one thing you mentioned too. I think Darren, you asked, just kind of like, or one of y'all just talking about like kind of how the whole album come together. And there's a certain continuity when you have a album producer. So I know Dr. Dre, there are clips of him on Instagram talking about these cats ain't producers, they beat makers. You know what I mean? Now, I respect the beat maker as a producer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Personally, I wouldn't say, oh, you're not a producer, you're a beat maker. But what he was saying was that making a beat for a song is nothing like producing a body of work. And even Beyonce always talks about like artists ain't putting together bodies of work anymore, like albums that are, this album is one thing. It has 10 segments, 10 parts, but it's one body of work. And so when you have a producer for the album, and not just executive producer who spend the money, but like someone who is creatively responsible, you see what I'm saying, for making sure this thing flows nicely. So track order. Like the track order isn't necessarily the same order we did at the concert. So like the last song on the album was the second song at the concert, but how it came together, how it fit with the songs that we left off, like we wanted to make sure that it flows and it kind of takes you on this journey. You see what I'm saying? With this big kind of celebratory climax at the end. And so that's kind of how it came about. And it was three of us. So we still got synergy, but we also got continuity. We don't have like 10 different, 10 songs with 5 producers each. And everybody was doing it at their crib, and somebody just kind of take all the beats and kind of put it together and try to make it fit. Like, sometimes it works, but sometimes, oh yeah, that track 5. How often do in the group, we be like, man, this track 5. But this album is the album.
I was just about to say we've done that a lot. How like a lot of albums we'll hear where it's like you're hearing 18 different songs, but you're not hearing an album. Versus some other albums, projects like I'm hearing like this is like I'm a story, it's a journey. Like I'm
let that joint play.
Exactly.
Like Martavius EP, like my commute is 25 minutes. His EP is 24 minutes. It's perfect.
Yep.
I don't gotta skip nothing. I'm just let that joint ride.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so that's when you kind of like when one song flow to the next and it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it feels like it's supposed to go together. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how that came about.
So what's up, man? Before we get out of here, any music that we should be checking out on your end from Golden Brothers Music Group, or just any new music you've been checking out in general?
Yeah. So obviously Geoffrey's record. Obviously the music support group, folks, Martavius EP. I wasn't familiar with the other one, but definitely want to check that out. And just kind of, Duran Bernard. He is an artist.
Okay.
And so I played for him once. Like, he's from Cleveland. His mom was Reggie and Jeffrey's piano teacher.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a connection. I got it.
Yeah. So I love his artistry. This album, I like it. I can't say I love it if I'm being totally honest, but like I love dude artistry and how free he is on them tracks. So I like that. And so my homegirl who sang on Jeff's record, Gwen Henderson, she dropped a single a couple weeks ago called Overcomer. Doobie Powell produced that. So it got that real New York feel. Red Hands.
I saw you drop that in the group the other day. I saw you drop that in the group. I've been meaning to run that. I saw you drop that in the group.
Dude, run that. It's like it's gospel, but it feels like a D'Angelo record.
Oh, okay.
Literally. It feel like the first track feel like a D'Angelo record. Then the next track feel like a Thundercat record. And then PJ Morton on the next joint.
All right, I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna check it out.
That joint's sweet, man. Joint's sweet. And so like the dude who started Red Hands, like he's the MD for Khalid. Like he tours with Khalid and he writes on a lot of so you get a lot of that pop feel.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
It's interesting how everybody's like connected in this. Like, I wrote for him. I sang background for him. I like.
Just like everyone's like a couple degrees away from each other. It just kind of builds on top of that.
Yeah, man. So it's just like when you get in it, you'll just you start noticing connections, man. And then God just has a way of kind of putting folks in your life, you know what I mean, that are supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So
that's what's up, man. We appreciate you coming on.
Check out Red Hands, man.
We appreciate you coming on, brother.
No doubt, man. Thank you guys for having me.
No problem, man. Anything you got, Darren, before we get out of here, bro?
Nah, man, this is my favorite episode yet. This is dope. This is informative. It's fun. I learned a lot. Put on some music. Yeah, this was great.
It was fun.
Now I got nothing else, man. I've been checking out that Benny the Butcher Omar Apollo album.
I need to run that. I knew Benny. I need to run that.
But and then I don't have anything else to add, man. Y'all stay safe. Don't be like Atlanta. Stay inside.
Atlanta wide open, man.
All right, y'all. Thank y'all for listening again. Oh, be sure to follow us on Instagram, rapnerds_MSG. That's rapnerds_MSG on Instagram. Go ahead and shout yourself out, your Instagram, Twitter, whatever you got, Kev.
Oh, KG the Lawyer everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, at KG the Lawyer.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you popping on again.
And obviously, Revival's on Apple Music,
Revival,
Spotify, everywhere you can get music. Yep. Check it out.
Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe, like, share, comment. I'm gonna take a line from Bomani Jones. If you dislike us, like I'm inclined to think you're a hater.
Anything less than 4 stars. Anything less than 4 stars.
Yeah, you're a
Maybe 5 stars.
hater.
I'm gonna find that dude to give us 4 stars. Man.
Hater. But
Yeah.
anyway, we gotta get out of here. This is Curt, aka Leroy the Green III.
Darren 49 Guru. Oh man, one more thing. I don't got the damn. I was gonna show the stickers, man. Yo, whoever leaves a comment, if you like a post and leave a comment on Apple Music or Spotify and rate us, send you a free sticker.
Yep. Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. Peace.